Howdy gamers. Let's talk about the runes for Gnar top lane. I think there's a pretty big misconception on the keystones that people are running, and then through the keystones they're running, they inevitably end up in the wrong, or not the wrong trees, but just like not as optimal trees. So the most commonly ran keystones on Gnar are Press the Attack, Fleet of Footwork, Conquer, and Grasp. All of these runes do work on Gnar, but you have to consider that he's a champion that transforms, and most champions don't transform, so keystones aren't really designed around them, but in Gnar's case, since he does, you do have to play around that. And I think a lot of misconceptions of that people get on Gnar is through just playing around his ranged form. And if you're only getting value in his ranged form, you're just playing like an incomplete champion, effectively. But that's also kind of covered up in a lot of the gameplay if you're just simply like winning lane early. So starting off with the precision keystones, with Press the Attack, it's okay. Press the Attack is one of the better uses where it naturally has synergy with how Gnar wants to play things out. He wants to get 3 autos that procs his passive, and then that simply deals more damage. So if you are proccing Press the Attack in an already winning matchup, you do simply deal more damage, and that's completely fine. But the problem with Press the Attack is that with most of the top lane matchups that you're going to be playing into, they're either immediately burst oriented, or whenever you transform, Press the Attack isn't really that relevant. With Press the Attack, whenever you get 3 auto attacks, you deal bonus damage and you expose them for 6 seconds. So by the time you would transform, this most likely isn't up. Because if you were to start off a trade, like as your rage is going up and you proc Press the Attack and you get on top of the enemy champion, congratulations. That's pretty good. But like it's harder to pull off than not. With Fleet of Footwork, and you get no value out of it in the melee form. With Fleet of Footwork, with Fleet of Footwork, it's pretty much the same thing. You get value out of it in the ranged form, but then once you transform, it's almost a negligible rune. With Fleet of Footwork, you heal, and then you also get bonus movement speed. So this helps you whenever you're poking an enemy champion, as it lets you move a little bit past the minion wave, and then auto them, and either continue to trade or disengage it entirely. It also has the defensive utility, as once an enemy champion's on top of you, think about champions like Camille, Irelia, or even Yasuo that counter Gnar. Once they're on top of you, it helps you like just get away from them even after your jump, because most of these champions have ways to stick onto you even after you jump away from them. So Fleet of Footwork is like kind of just a luxury laning tool. The healing from it is so negligible as well that it's mostly just for that movement speed, and then through the movement speed you gain extra utility, just in ranged form though. With Conqueror, you build up stacks with it, so basic attacks or spells that deal damage to an enemy champion grant you 2 stacks if you're melee of Conqueror that give you bonus attack damage. If you're ranged though, it only gives you 1 stack per basic attack. So it's harder to build this up in ranged form, so you lose a lot of value there. Since it's not a trading tool off the bat, so your first auto on the enemy is really effectively nothing. And then your second one about the same, and then the third one about the same. It really, like, you really do have to take a pretty extended trade for Conqueror to be even close to worth. And where it takes longer to stack up as a ranged champion, that hurts. And then when it's fully stacked, and ideally once you've transformed into Mega Gnar, you do gain okay value out of the bonus AD, because Gnar's Q has a 160 AD ratio whenever you transform. But even that, I don't see it outweighing other damage runes that you could otherwise run. The healing from it as well, like other champions just make better use out of the healing, even though Gnar can deal a lot of damage, and he can deal a lot of AoE damage as well, so like it's not super terrible. But think about a champion like Cassiopeia. They just use the Conqueror really, like just a lot better. And then into the precision tree, all of this isn't so bad. Either coup de grace or last stand. Like Triumph is completely fine. The attack speed from this is okay. And then the second page, you would end up with like usually bone plating, overgrowth, and then the adaptive runes would be attack speed, attack damage, and then armor. With this sort of page, it'd be okay. Like you'd get okay damage into any of the melee's top lane, and into the tanks as well. It'd just be okay. But I think there's just more potentials either for damage or like extra utility through other rune pages. With Grasp as well, before I move on to like what I'm going to recommend, with Grasp it has like lower synergy, even though it can be viewed as like just a damage rune. So with Grasp, every 4 seconds in combat, your next basic attack on an enemy champion will deal bonus magic damage, equal to 4% of your max health, and then heal you for 2%, and then permanently increase your health by 5. For ranged champions, the damage and healing and permanently increased health is reduced. So I don't see any reason to run this. I like if you were to view Gnar pretty similar to like Jace or something, you just the healing is negligible and the damage is lessened like from being ranged. So yes, you can have the okay value whenever you're melee, but what's even the point at that? Like when you could just run something else? Because like if you really need the damage and you really need the healing, you're better off getting it from other sources. So one okay option is summon Airy, and then you'd end up into a rune page similar to this. And then for the secondary runes, you could run like Coup de Grace, Triumph. With the Domination tree, you don't have great options. Into the Resolve tree, you could still have okay options in Second Wind, and then Overgrowth or Bone Plating in Overgrowth. And then with the Inspiration tree, kind of the same deal where you don't have like great options, but you could have like compensation for your scaling. But defaultly, you would just get okay value out of this. With Summon Airy plus Scorch, it's pretty similar to Jace top lane where you function as a ranged champion, and then when you want to go in, um, then you're still going to be getting value out of it. So with Summon Airy, your attacks and abilities send Airy to the enemy and deals extra damage. The cooldown of Airy is only based on the time it takes Airy to come back to you. So with that, it makes it so that basically every time you're auto-attacking or queuing, you're simply dealing more damage. And then if you're running them down in the range form, then it's dealing more damage. And if you're in melee form and you're on top of them, the cooldown of Airy is going to be reduced, so you're able to get it off like 2 or 3 times throughout an all-in if you're on top of them. The other runes in this tree are kind of whatever. If you're into an AP matchup, Nullifying Orb is going to help you, as whenever you're low on health, it gives you a magic damage shield. With Nimbus Cloak, if you're not in an AP matchup, you might as well take it. It's going to give you like okay utility whenever you TP, but that's about it. Nimbus Cloak is super low value on Gnar. But the matchups in which you would want to run Summon Airy are mostly the AP matchup top lane. So think about champions like Mordekaiser, Rumble. All of these champions have the advantage of like a pushing ability and then a poke ability. But if Gnar is just beating that and then is out poking them, those champions don't have sustain, and then you're going to have an all-in advantage with the Nullifying Orb after you poke them down. So like as they're spinning abilities on the wave, you would be attacking them. With Transcendence having 10% CDR, you're going to get level 10 pretty quickly, and then that's when you get the 10% CDR. So in the top lane, and then especially in melee form, that's when you're going to be getting the most value out of Transcendence, because being able to get 2 Ws off in a team fight does go pretty far, so long that you can pull it off. And with Scorch, Scorch adds to your mixed damage values. You're going to be dealing magic damage with your W, and then everything else is basically going to be physical. But with Scorch, it's just going to give you another damage source, because in basically every lane you're going to be playing against, they're going to be starting with the +6 armor and runes. So having the extra magic damage from this just makes it deal more, and then in combination with Airy, more importantly, it just gives you more effective damage through your poke throughout the laning phase. But that's not the main rune page I'm recommending for Gnar. I think that one's just like a more potent laning rune page for Gnar. If you're actually trying to win lane, something like Press the Attack, it's okay, but Summon Airy and Scorch is just simply going to give you more damage, and without the enemy really having any say in it, because with Press the Attack, you're basically just trading autos at that point. So the rune page that I'm going to recommend here is Hella Blades, Cheap Shot, either Eyeball Collection or Ghost Poro. Like Ghost Poro is going to be more consistent, as whenever you are placing wards in lane, whenever you spawn a Ghost Poro, it's going to grant you additional vision for 60 seconds, and whenever you spawn one, it grants you bonus attack damage. So you're basically choosing how you get your plus, I think, 18 attack damage from Ghost Poro or Eyeball Collection. Ghost Poro is through placing wards, and then Eyeball Collection is through getting kills or assists. So if you have a winning lane, or if you're just playing a more solo queue style, Eyeball Collection is completely fine. But if you're playing more consistently and you know how to like use the Ghost Poro to a higher degree, Ghost Poro is going to be probably more consistent for you. But I would say default, I'd recommend Eyeball Collection, because it's simply like just easier, I would suppose. And then Ravenous Hunter. And then for the secondary runes, it's going to be Triumph and The Last Stand, and the adaptive runes wouldn't change. Starting off with Hella Blades, I think it's really ridiculous how a lot of people have missed this. Maybe I'm off about it. Maybe I'm completely off about these Gnar runes. Like I don't play Gnar, and I also just haven't like tried them out to a high degree. But with Hellblades, you gain 110% attack speed when you attack an enemy champion for up to 3 attacks. No more than 2 seconds can elapse between attacks, or this effect will end. And the cooldown is only 4 seconds out of combat. So if you land a Q, that's going to set you up for 3 autos. That procs your passive on your W. That's effectively landing 2 abilities on the enemy plus 3 auto attacks. And the auto attacks are like almost an ability in themselves for Gnar, because even though he's a ranged champion, he's a very short range one. So his attacks need to be quick and they need to be like effective against the enemy, especially with like any of the season 10 champions that are going to be playing against top lane. Champions like, again, Irelia, Camille, um, yeah, champions that just dive on top of you. Halo Blades also has offensive, neutral, and defensive capabilities. If you're offensively doing it, like I said, you land a Q and then you get the auto, auto, auto. That's a positive trade. If it's a neutral trade, where let's say you're playing against a caster top lane, so champions like Rumble, Ornn, um, Mordekaiser, where they can trade an ability back, you can still have a positive, even if you're not landing your Q through the minions, because you have the attack speed for the 3 auto attacks. In a defensive situation, it's also useful, because let's say, worst case scenario, Camille jumps on top of you, and then she lands the stun, and you jump away, and then she ults. You can auto, 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 and then Q. You're going to get movement speed away from her, and then she's going to be slowed afterwards. These autos are also, every single time, they're going to be building up your fury for your ult. And same thing, Gnar's ult, or not even Gnar's ult, Gnar's transformation is both an offensive and a defensive tool. So no matter the situation, I just think it's more adaptable, man. That's what I'm trying to say. With Cheap Shot, whenever you damage an enemy with impaired movements or actions, you deal bonus true damage to them. This true damage is based on level, and this, again, is only on a 4-second cooldown, so has perfect timing with Hella Blades. Cheap Shot's going to be giving you more damage, mostly in your melee form. In the range form, it's going to give you a better neutral trade, because you land the Q, and then your autos are going to, or any other source of damage you have against them is going to be proccing Cheap Shot. But in your melee form, it's going to be compensating. It's just going to be giving you another source of damage that you otherwise wouldn't have. So on your full rotation, you could proc this 2 times. If you take things slower, or if you get a second rotation of the Q or W off, you can proc it 3 or 4 times. And that true damage does add up, especially against a lot of bruisers top lane, where they have ways to heal damage, block damage, have damage reduction, etc. The true damage does go a long way. And where it can be procced onto multiple champions as well, it makes your team fighting even better. As if Gnar's not dealing damage, he's really just not significant, especially compared to other champions. Eyeball Collection again. This or Ghost Poro is just about getting the attack damage, and either through placing wards or getting kills or assists. The attack damage offered by these 2 runes as well is about as much as Conqueror up until like level 9 or so. So like this minor rune is giving you about as much AD, so long that you get it stacked up, as like a keystone. Think about that. But I mean, hey, run Conqueror still. Ravenous Hunter. Heal for a percentage of damage dealt by your abilities. The healing, this will proc on your Q, on every single instance of Gnar's damage, except for his auto attacks, basically. Even your W, the damage dealt by the 3 hits, is going to be proccing this. So once you have this stacked up a bit, it come mid game, and even in 1v1, so let's say mid game you're side laning in a 1v1 scenario, having this where if you, because you're initially trading your health early in range form to transform, and once you transform, not only do you have more health regen, but then you have a double set of, like, you just have more abilities to deal damage, and so long that you're hitting those abilities, you'll be healing off them. And in a team fight scenario, you're going to be getting even better value out of Ravenous Hunter, as once you jump onto multiple targets, you're going to be getting better value out of Ravenous Hunter, because all of your abilities are AoE in melee form. And if you're hitting multiple enemies, you're dealing more damage, and then through dealing more damage, you're healing more from the abilities. So I think Ravenous Hunter has really, really good synergy with like how Gnar wants to play out. With Triumph, it's kind of the same thing. You spend your HP, and then if you have it restored in the middle of a fight, it makes it so that you have a lot more leniency. You have a lot more. It just makes things it's easier to play with. you jump on, like, you ult 5 people, you probably kill one, even if it's just a support, and then that extra HP offered, even if you transform back into ranged, so long that you're still alive, Gnar's mostly just about spending his HP as his resource, and the more HP you have, the more you have to play with, as you're gated by your cooldowns, and then if you have enough HP to either survive a fight or continue fighting. So the additional 20 gold offered by this is kind of just icing on the cake. And then for the last rune, Last Stand. Last Stand, you deal increased damage the lower health you are. Same sort of concept, like you get low and then you transform and then you turn the whole fight around. Or you start the whole fight, basically. With Coup de Grace, you might get better value out of this into maybe Bruiser matchups top lane, but I think with Last Stand, it's just going to be more consistent come mid to late game. And to beat down or to like win the top lane matchup just because of Coup de Grace damage would be kind of surprising, but maybe it does. I'm just not sure. With Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who are below 40% health. The way Gnar should function in a team fight too is like he should be kind of spinning himself as a resource for his team too, as that's a lot of what the melee form of Gnar does, is like this engaged tank champion. So if he's not doing that and is simply like all in his damage, I think it's like off theme, and then also just not so useful. So that's that. And then with the adaptive runes, attack speed, because you want to be able to have wave control. Most of what you're doing in the early game is just auto attacking in range form, and the attack speed is going to give you enough attack speed to not only like have the threat of hitting the enemy, but also being able to last hit at the same time. And then the 6 attack damage just gives more damage to your auto attacks in every single ability. And then depending on your matchup, you do want to switch the resistance at the end. So if you're into, obviously, if you're into physical matchups, Irelia, Camille, etc., you want the armor. And then if you're into AP matchups, top lane champions like Rumble, Ryze, Cassiopeia, etc., you want the magic resist. So do consider that depending on what you're running. So these would be the runes I'd recommend for Gnar top lane. They might be wrong, but damn, man, I think it's a definite better shot than everything else that's been presented in Grasp and then all the precision keystones. So that's my thoughts. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you think I'm completely wrong, you know, maybe I am, man. I don't. I'm not the king on Gnar, but that's my thoughts. And yeah, twitch.tv/SollyNelson. You can watch me play League of Legends or talk about it there. Peace out, man. Hopefully I'm not wrong, man. I don't think I am. I think I'm pretty on the ball here, but maybe I'm off. I don't know. Bye bye. Mega Gnar signing out.